Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard the ISS and welcome to tonight's show. Of course, many of you know that today marks the day of TYPO3 11 LTS release. So, like with version 9, where they send me around a few airports around the globe, tonight I'm in the so-called cupola in the Tranquility module of the ISS. And as you can see, behind me there's planet Earth rotating, nice weather and stuff. And boy, got we a nice evening planned for you. We have Susie Moog, who will be interviewing a whole lot of guests. We have 4 panels in total. And let me just fill you in who's going to be here tonight. So there's going to be Luisa Faßbender, Andy Fernandez, Larry Garfield, Volker Graubaum, Ollie Harder, Benji Kott, Benni Mack, and Tom Warwick for you. And on our first panel, we have Benni Mack and Larry Garfield talking about, well, Benni from his side is the project lead of TYPO3. Basically, what are the new features of 11 LTS, and Larry giving us some insights about him having joined the community rather recently. So let's give it a watch, shall we?
Hello and welcome to my living room. With me today are Benni and Larry. And I want to start asking Benni about TYPO3 version 11. You as our beloved core team leader, how do you feel about version 11 today?
Today, I feel really good about it. I think it's a really rock solid version. I know a lot of people who tried out the sprint releases, and I'm really confident that people can start using it right away. Actually, I do this.
Hey, me too.
Good.
You know, in the years past, there have always been some complaints that we're not doing enough for the editors of TYPO3. With version 11, I have heard that there have been a lot of changes that are good for the editors. What do you say about that? Is that true, or is that just something that I heard?
I expect that it's better for editors. So yes, it's true.
Can you list some of the changes, or?
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things I think that editors that I've talked to and I've demoed version 11, they're like, oh yeah, I was wondering why it didn't work before, or it wasn't as flexible as before. But one of my favorite things is that the editor experience is better because we have fewer buttons that are like cluttering all the interface. And most of the buttons, or quite a few, have labels with it. I mean, that sounds like a simple task, but you always need to think about what things editors need to use on a regular basis, and which, like the history functionality, should be hidden in the list modules or list views, whatever things we have. So, yeah, we've improved that. I'm really happy about that. But then quite some things. One of my favorite things is all the trees, the page tree, the folder tree in the file list module, and all the other link pickers. They share the same functionality now, and it makes everything look like it's one system and not, oh, this part we forgot. to touch in the last 15 years. So that's really a good thing.
One of the things I noticed straight away is that I can now actually resize the tree. So that's, for me, that's basically great, because I was missing that with some long titles in the back end. So that's actually my favorite part of the editor experience of version 11.
Actually, I don't know, I wouldn't call it, I mean, it's a great feature. Again, it's consistent across the page tree, but also on the link views. Well, for instance, if you still run version 7 ELTS and you upgrade to version 11, you still have that functionality because it was removed and now added again. So technically, yes, it's a new feature, but somehow it got lost.
Yeah, but I guess we have a lot of users who came to TYPO3 in versions 8 to 10, so they don't know yet, and
yeah,
let me
that's
just
true.
point that out because I like it. And additionally, I think the trees feel much better now. They feel just faster and are easier to work with.
That's what I heard too, that people say, wow, the backend is super fast. I don't know why, but it's faster.
I think one reason for that is actually PHP 8, which is something that Larry can probably talk about a bit, because Larry is pretty new to TYPO3, but not new to PHP. So what did you do for TYPO3 for PHP 8?
And why is it faster?
One of the first tasks that I worked on when I started working with TYPO3 core was PHP 8 compatibility. PHP 8, like any major release of a language, has some not hard backward compatibility breaks, but things that need to be a bit tidier. And the big one in PHP 8 is undefined array keys and undefined variables are now warnings rather than notices, which means you can't just ignore them and pretend that they'll just turn into null. You have to check for them explicitly. And TYPO3 uses a lot of arrays internally, so I spent several weeks going through and finding everywhere that was using an array and not checking to see if it had a value and fixing that. It was not, the fix itself is fairly straightforward, and making that the same changes to extensions should be fairly straightforward for people to do, but it's something you do need to take time to check. But I think it's good. PHP 8 overall is a more precise and picky language, and precise and picky languages let you be more precise and picky about what your code is doing. And that leads to fewer bugs. You, in the end, need less code if you do your error handling up front, because that makes the errors go away, and then the code is also cleaner and easier to maintain. Sometimes it's faster, in part because then you don't need your error handler checking for those kind of issues and swallowing those that you don't want to deal with. So yeah, V11 will run on PHP 7.4. That's fine. I would recommend people upgrade to 8 anyway. And 8.1 will be supported in the very near future. It's almost supported now. And PHP 8.1 isn't even out yet. So.
What changed with PHP 8.1?
8.0 or 8.1?
8.1. So if you say we are nearly there supporting PHP 8.1?
Well, let's start with PHP 8. 8.0 had a huge number of new features that, as a developer, I love. My personal favorites are constructor property promotion, which makes writing classes and objects 10 times easier. Named arguments, which we finally have and work everywhere. Again, just makes writing code a lot easier. And attributes, which TYPO3 only uses in one place in V11, and that's the logging system, where you can specify an explicit channel for a log when you pass it in through dependency injection. Another feature that 8.0 offers that is going to be a huge boon to TYPO3 is union types, because union types allow you to specify a parameter or return type as being this type or this other type. That's something that TYPO3 already has places where a parameter will take multiple types, and we can't specify that in 7.4. With 8, you can. It also means you can transition a parameter from an array to a properly defined object and have that kind of graceful transition by, right now it's typed for an array, you then type it for array or object of whatever the type is, your code can deal with either version, and then once people have transitioned over to the object, you can drop support for the array. It makes TYPO3's continual support and gradual upgrade process a lot smoother. 8.1, which is coming out end of November is the plan, adds support for enumerations, which give you the ability to define a limited number of possible values for something. So, for example, you can say sort order for something is going to be either ascending or descending. Those are the only possible values. Right now, you can just say, oh, it's a string, and you hope that someone passes in either ascending or descending. Enumerations, you can say, no, these are the two values it can be, anything else is a type error. So you do less error handling and get more precise, more self-descriptive code. That's a feature I worked on in PHP itself. The support for attributes is improved, you can now specify a default value for a parameter that is an object, which ties in nicely with the constructor property promotion, and that improves the attribute support somewhat. There's just a lot of little things that make life nicer. Another nice one is read-only properties, which lets you specify a property on an object that can be written to only once and only from inside the object. Wrap all of these things together, you can now, in 8.1, have a class where all of the properties of it are listed in the constructor as public, read-only, string, whatever. You list it once, and you now have an object with defined types, defined properties that you don't need to wrap getter and setter methods around. And you're guaranteed, because it's read-only, it's not going to change out from under you. And you can then create that object using named arguments in your constructor call. So it's almost like using just an array, except better in every possible way. Uses less memory, it's faster, it's more self-descriptive, more self-documenting.
Type safety.
Yeah, the type safety is enormous. And the new features in 8.0 and 8.1 are going to let us really push type safety forward in TYPO3, and we can start with that in extensions today. With extensions that require PHP 8, go ahead and write them, as far as I'm concerned. It's ready, go for it, and that'll put you in a good position to keep updating in the future.
Would you agree, Benny?
Oh, yes. I mean, I wouldn't start using PHP 8.1 today,
No.
because it's not out yet, but I want to have that. All the goodies, hopefully somehow supported by all my customer projects, and use it as soon as possible.
But as an extension author, I have to just say that if I publish my extension now with only PHP 8 support,
It'll work on 8.1. Yeah, the 8.0 to 8.1 is so far very smooth. I think there's only 2 places where something has been deprecated. That's not actually going to get removed for several versions, but if your unit tests are running and checking for deprecations, then they'll start warning you about those. But they're easy to fix. We already fixed most of them in TYPO3 core. So yeah, an extension going from 8.0 to 8.1 should be pretty easy and cleanly backward compatible as well. So yeah, for right now, make your extensions run on PHP 8, and sometime early next year, just check them on 8.1. Odds are they'll work. If not, it should be an easy fix. And use all the new fun toys that PHP development process keeps giving us, because PHP is a very dynamic language in the sense that it evolves quickly, and dynamic in the sense that it's dynamic typing, but in this case, I mean, evolves quickly. And keeping up with new releases of PHP is not just about improved performance, although you get that. It's not just about security support, although you get that. It's also about just a nicer developer experience as someone writing code, to get more done with more reliability, with less effort, less testing needed, because the language syntax is taking care of that for me. I like keeping up with PHP.
But that's the point for me of type safety, because type safety is like a if developers hear that, that's like, oh, that's nice, that's new fun toys. But if you think about it, you don't have to write that much code anymore because you don't have to check if it's a string or whatever. And that also, if you have less code, it's faster because you don't have to do the checks. So the language does that. So actually talking about the performance, if you use the new things, you're faster in development and the code is faster in production.
I mean, and if you look at the TYPO3 backend, it's gotten a lot faster. I have it running on on PHP 8 currently. So my TYPO3 is actually running on PHP 8 on production already. And if you just click around there, it's so much nicer than it has been before. I really have to say that, especially, I don't know, did you do something to the list module there? Because that really feels better.
Yes.
Yes. What did you do?
No, some tricks.
Is it a secret?
If you looked closely at the commits, you will find out, but we somehow slipped some performance improvements in there.
Tell us more about it. Our viewers want to know. The
It's
public
open source.
needs
Nothing
to
is
know.
truly a secret.
Yes.
But that's just like Benny to say, yeah, just read the commits.
No, yeah. Well, we did a lot of things in the list module. I think we can get faster even with the list module, and we're not done yet. Also with the editor improvements, we decided to go for a iterative process instead of throwing everything away and doing it from scratch again. And the same happened for us, not just with the UI, but also with the code underneath. So we got rid of some things, and we noticed, oh, why do you fetch the whatever, the relations to categories all the time, even if they're the same? So actually, it's a simple first-level cache that takes care of this. Yeah, and these small things, who's the author of this record, is also done with a cache. I think we actually backported this to version 10. Once you work on a piece of code like the list module for a couple of days and weeks, you find like, what does this do, and why is it even in there? And then you work around this and improve it, and a couple of weeks later, somebody else who works with the dev master for bleeding edge basically reports that it's now super fast, and you're like, that made an improvement. That's great. So yeah, these small things happened, and we also went to go with web components with lit elements, and using web components is actually much nicer than, let's say, using fluid view helpers for certain things in the TYPO3 backend. Of course, you need to load JavaScript, but all the browsers are really good in working with JavaScript instead of, getting all the HTML out for a single SVG icon over and over again in your fluid templates in the file list module, for instance.
So can I, as a user of TYPO3, use web components too? So if I write a backend module, can I use that?
A user, like an editor?
No, like imagine I would be a developer. Could I, if I write my own backend module, could I use web components?
Yes.
Is there something in TYPO3 that I can use?
Yes, there's actually one thing that improves the editor experience instead of just talking about buttons and icons. We finally found a good way to have this module as an iframe to be replaced by a full web component. So you can do a single page application instead of your iframe. You can do that with your own extension right away. Of course, it will only work on version 11, but who's using version 10 nowadays? Yeah, and the good thing about the editors then is you can actually see that the URL in your browser changes every time you go to a different module. It updates with our new routing for the backend. So in version 9 we had routing in the front end. Now we have really good first step for routing in the backend, and that means we can share links.
So you can send me your backend link and I can actually click on that?
Yeah, I mean, if that makes you happy, you can do that. But I've also heard that people who actually use TYPO3 version 11 in production said this one guy uploaded all the screenshots for a new version of their software into a specific folder in a file list module and sends it in their Teams or Slack or whatever chat software they're using, and sending the link from his browser and saying, hey guys, or guys and gals, here's the link to all the files that I've just uploaded, play around with it. And that's something that was never possible before in TYPO3.
That also opens new possibilities for using TYPO3 as an intranet, for example, where you can use the file list module as a kind of asset management module, because you can now directly point at it.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's actually really nice. And one other thing that you did to the file list module,
Okay.
you did to the file list module, sorry.
Yeah.
I think we have new download possibilities there.
Yeah.
I saw something.
There were quite some people who had this wish for a long time, and even people who didn't know about this, that we've built such a feature, they were really happy to see this. So the file list module has some kind of feeling like Dropbox and Google Drive, where you can now select multiple folders and files. You can also use a keyboard for that, or like with your Finder or Windows Explorer to select multiple ones with your Shift key pressed. And then you can select download, and it creates a zip file out of it. And that's really helpful if you have like 200 files in one folder and you just want to download all of them right away and then delete all of them right away. This takes seconds. It depends on your server configuration, if your memory limit or your maximum execution time allows it. But yeah, it's good.
Yep, that's really good. And additionally, do you remember in version 10? I know it's a long time ago, but for you at least, the column selector box below the list module that nobody really understood, because you had all these underscore, ref underscore, whatever things in there. That got changed too, didn't it?
Yeah. So people did not know that. So talking about the editor experience, it was also important for us to make it a bit more self-explaining. So before version 10, you had to, or everything else below, because the code was like 15 years old, you had the list module, and then you had to go into single table mode, whatever, and then scroll down of your 1,000 records, and then there was a whatever list of fields, and this list didn't even have a, like, you didn't even know that there was a list or like a list of fields. You had to scroll down and know that it's there. And then it didn't have a headline, so people didn't know what this is. Of course it's easy to add a headline, but still people wouldn't find it. So we built this into a separate module box to select the columns, also with a filter. We got feedback, early feedback from people who tried out the new version, said, it's really cool, but I have a huge table with, I don't know, 50 columns, and I want to filter that. So we got that in place too. And it says select columns or show columns, I can't remember. And I think it's better than no headline. And it's always visible. Of course, like with TYPO3, you can disable everything and disable this button, but in general, it's
there.
It's there. You might notice if you ever use it.
And if I like show, I think that probably worked before, but I didn't quite get it. So I can show like 3 fields and then select multiple records and then just edit these 3 fields of these records.
Yep.
So that's what it does, I guess. So
you can do that, yes.
Yeah, that probably worked before, but I just didn't understand it. So
yeah, it worked before, but there was just, in my opinion, checkboxes didn't look like checkboxes, and there were like 50 buttons in between, so you didn't know what button to press. So now it hopefully is easier to understand.
another thing that I didn't get before, or always forgot that it was there, which you also changed, was the export. So
Okay.
like Wasn't that single table view before where you had to click on the single table view and then you got the export thing? So
The small icon, yes.
yeah,
So the single table view was like a superpower, but nobody knew about it, except if you have had training or used TYPO3 for like 15 years. And now we also made this export download button a bit clearer. So I think we named it download because export conflicts with our export module. So you can download the records and only the columns that you've previously selected and get a list of that as CSV version. And you can also choose whatever CSV format you have. And the bad thing is there's no standard for CSV. So that's why we also just added a JSON export to whatever you want to do with that. But you could do that.
so JSON is basically to have something that's kind of standardized or
Well, JSON, of course, is a first name, an English first name. But you can also use this format, I think, for machines to understand it. I mean, you can also use CSV, but that's always a pain to use. So JSON is probably easier to do stuff with the data after you've exported it.
yeah, anyone who ever had to use CSV imports probably knows
Yeah.
why that is a problem, especially when there's umlauts. Probably don't have that problem in America so much.
Not as often, no.
Yeah,
Instead, we just have emojis.
yeah, that didn't make anything better on that front. Yeah, nice. What else can we do as an editor? Can we do anything else?
Manage content.
Yeah, it's a weird question, I guess. But when did you work as an editor last?
Last week.
What did you do?
I had to migrate some third-party extension that creates custom content elements into default content elements that ship with TYPO3. So
On a version 11.
on version 11, yes.
So you are actively using that already?
Yes.
That sounds
Or
good.
the other thing is that, yeah, I mean, I use the page tree to find out whatever page IDs are used for the error pages, which are nicer now since yesterday. And the default ones, and you can configure custom error pages. And I usually need to create them and then wire them up with the site configuration. So these kind of things. So I actively use TYPO3 backend every day. Today, actually, I configured the rich text editor CSS file, CK editor stuff, to use a different list icon. You can do that since version 8 with CK editor. That's quite nice. That was version 10 though, so it was really slow, but it's good.
Everything's better now that we have PHP 8 and some secret, you can find them in the commit messages, improvements to the list module, as we learned. I would say thank you to both of you for now. If you have any questions to both of them, ask me. I will dispatch them for you. And I think I'll hand over to our space station and back to Jörg.
Thank you, Susie, Benny, and Larry, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to low Earth orbit, where I'm currently residing, still in the cupola. And what an interesting topic that is, right? And for our second panel, we have Ollie Harder, the team lead of the security team for TYPO3, talking about TYPO3 11 from a security perspective. And we also have Andy Fernandez, who's a core team member, who's going to be talking about TYPO3 in your day-to-day work from the perspective of a core team member, as far as I'm aware. So let's watch, shall we?
Welcome back. I switched the people. They were beamed in. Ollie is still feeling a bit weird and wobbly. So this is Ollie, the leader of our TYPO3 security team. This is Andy, one of our core contributors. And I'm happy to have you here and talk to you about your experience with TYPO3 version 11. So let's start with Ollie. From a security perspective, did anything change in TYPO3 version 11? Did we make anything more secure?
Always. So I think like security is an ongoing process, and also in this release we put a lot of effort into that. So when I talk about security, I don't mean the security team in particular or me or those guys that are dedicated working on security, but I talk about like the core contributors, or basically the community. So that's the important aspect here. But there are two things that made it into TYPO3 version 11. And one thing to mention is the multi-factor authentication. So that is really a cool feature. And basically the other one is that we finally have a rate limiter. So that's really cool. And there are other things that we prepared.
Okay. That was very short. Can you maybe tell our viewers a bit about multi-factor authentication? So what's, if I never heard that before?
Sure. So the thing, multi-factor authentication, it addresses basically the login mechanism of TYPO3. So imagine you are an administrator of a TYPO3 website and you have a bunch of administrators. Then you use your username and your password to authenticate against the system. So that is basically the first step, the first authentication mechanism. Since we talk about a second authentication step, or multi-factor authentication, so there also could be a second or a third or even more of them, you have to provide another information in order to authenticate against the system. And the idea behind multi-factor authorization or authentication, is that you don't use again a username and a password, which could be leaked or written down on notes, and then you get access to like highly sensitive areas. But you use a different thing. Do I have my mobile phone here? So for instance, you use your mobile phone. I just have to show it. Yeah, you use your mobile phone. You can download an app, Google Authenticator, probably you heard about that. And then you get a different key, and then you use your device that you hold in your own hands. So you have it, you have the knowledge, you have the information, and then you basically use the information that is provided there. So you get a key, a token, a number. So basically it's a six-digit number. You enter that again into TYPO3. That's the second step. And then finally you have access to the backend. Probably you do want to know why that is interesting or important.
Of course.
Yeah, sure. So it turned out that a bunch of TYPO3 websites get hacked. So that's not a problem of TYPO3 per se. However, how do I formulate that? It turned out that some people are using weak passwords. So if you have a very long and very complex password, like 40 characters and all uppercase, lowercase, and mixed and special characters, then it takes a pretty long time to brute force that information. Like you have to basically process every combination that is possible. That takes a huge amount of time, even if you are able to parallelize the steps. But say you have an easy password, which is like TYPO3, for instance, or even password.
So that's your password?
Yeah, that's my password on my local installation only, so nobody else has access to that. So local installations, it's fine, but on the web, it's basically not okay. Because if you use words or combination of words, it is possible to have dictionary-based attacks. So you basically go through famous words, you combine them, and that is even faster and unfortunately successful. And it turned out that happens not only to TYPO3 websites, but basically to all websites. And providing that second factor, which is like, okay, you have the first login, you got that weak password, but then you still need that device that you need to own in order to authenticate
so
and
I
get
need
access.
to steal your phone now?
Exactly.
No,
No,
where did you put your phone?
I don't think that this is going to be happening. Yeah. So at least it makes TYPO3 more secure, and it really helps to address those dictionary-based attacks.
Yeah, and I've seen that there's actually, besides Google Authenticator, there's multiple other authentication mechanisms I can use.
I don't know them all. So like, yeah, there's basically that's a whole security ecosystem behind that. So the basic thing is OTP, like one-time password. So this is what Google Authenticator or Authy is another app can use. And basically, it's like the key changes every 30 seconds. So that's a time-based authentication provider.
That's why that's TOTP in the short.
Exactly. Time-based one-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Forgot the other abbreviations. And then there's another one, which is an HMAC-based authenticator or authentication mechanism, which is like you just have a counter, you have a secret value, and then it gets hashed and mathematically calculated, and then you get a different key. But you have to press the button on your phone to increase a counter, and then you get a new value, basically. But there are also like those hardware-based things like YubiKey, FIDO authentication. So this is not built into TYPO3, but there are extensions available that provide that possibility, that functionality, and that helps basically, yeah, people that are aware of security or want to make the access to their websites more secure, to basically adjust their needs to the market, the extensions that are out there. So there's a lot possibilities. And
yeah, I mean, I've seen at least YubiKey, SMS, and something additionally. FIDO2, I think, is already available in the TER, so on extensions typo3.org. So there are already extensions for TYPO3 version 11 that extend that functionality. So which one are you using?
I'm using the standard one, TYPO3 ships. I'm fine with that.
What's your password?
Super secret.
okay, super secret one or
Make a guess.
Okay, cool. I'll try that later.
But do you have in general do you have multi-factor authentication enabled in?
Yeah,
TYPO3?
sure.
Yeah. So, can I enforce that?
That is possible. Yeah. So if you are working in a company and basically have some rules, yeah, like password policy and these kind of things, then another thing that should be added is like enforcing the second factor authorization. So you can set a configuration in local configuration or in the TYPO3 install tool, admin tool, and then you can click that. And then the next time a user logs into the system and does not have the multi-factor authentication enabled, basically it will be set up. And if users don't do that step, they can't access the backend. So they really first have to go through that process in order to be more secure, and then can use the backend as usual.
So our recommendation would be to do that at least for the system maintainers and admins?
Yeah, so that would be my personal recommendation. That also applies for basically any other system like Git repositories. So if you're a maintainer of a Git repository and basically all your knowledge and all your data is stored there, then the admins that are able to remove everything should be secured by that second step. Yeah.
But imagine I didn't use multi-factor authentication. If I try to brute force the login, is there anything holding me back from doing that? Or can I just try as many times as I want? Or
That's a perfect question because that is basically addressing another feature that we introduced into TYPO3. What a coincidence, which is called rate limiter. So basically we integrated Symfony's rate limiting feature, so we did not reinvent that on our own. And the Symfony rate limiter supports, I think, 3 mechanisms to basically secure access to a particular part of the website. And we just did that for the backend login and the frontend login. So basically, imagine there's a script which is capable of brute forcing, like, I don't know, 1 million passwords per hour. Yeah, so yeah, trying through all of those combinations.
So only playing around on the
yeah,
weekend.
sure. So if you want to break something or brute force something, then you just need to have enough time in order to be successful. And if you have the time or can parallelize those steps, you're successful in having that information. And the rate limiter is exactly addressing that. So it defines a window. So it's like when the first attempt to access the backend form, the login form, when the first time the password is entered happens, then this window starts, and then there's an arbitrary amount of numbers, so that can be configured by administrators. Unfortunately, I don't know what our default value is right now. But then the window starts, and then let's say it's 100 or something like that. And then basically, if some attacker tries to brute force those steps, then if the value is set to 100, after the 101st request would fail, because the rate limiter kicks in and realizes, oh, well, I know that IP address, basically addressing that resource, the login resource. I'm basically going to block that.
Sounds sad for hacking Ollie.
Yeah, and finally we have something like that, so that is really a huge performance improvement. Because as I mentioned earlier, it's not like when we look to typical attacks, then like weak passwords or like those having the ability to brute force the passwords, they are real. So that's not just a theoretical thing, but that really happens out there.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have been using a Symfony component for that, and I like that too. So we're using more and more components from other systems and getting more things into it that we don't have to maintain ourselves, that are tested well, that are maybe known to people already. So that's, for me, that's also improving the development experience, because if you, for example, know Symfony already, then you get more components that you have seen before. And while talking about, this is trying to be another very good question, you know, talking about developer experience, Andy, you are a developer, I heard that.
Yeah, I heard that too.
On the grapevine. Is there anything in TYPO3 version 11 that is exciting to you as a developer?
Well, it's a little bit hard to grasp all these nice things that were introduced in 1.5 years. But I guess my most favorite feature is the command to flush my caches in TYPO3 while I'm developing. Because previously TYPO3 didn't have such a command. I was forced to log in the install tool and click some buttons to do that.
Log into the backend, log into the install tool, click the button, and do it all again. And now you have the command for that, which is integrated in TYPO3, which you can use. Do you use that in PHP Storm already?
No, I'm opening the terminal in PHP Storm and do a bin TYPO3 call.
You can do a shortcut for that in PHP Storm, so you can.
I know, but I always forget how to do. I'm a developer. I like to do things complicated.
Okay, I haven't said anything. There's cache flush. And I think we are already using that in our deployment script.
That's right.
Do we also use the other one?
Yeah, we are also warming up caches with the cache warm-up command.
And do we also use the third one? I'm doing a command line quiz for Andy now. I was wondering what the third one was.
If it's the one you have in mind, no, we are not using it right now.
So extension setup.
I had another one in mind, yeah. No, the extension setup, we're using that as well to set up our new database columns when we add some in an extension or if we change some database schema things.
So basically, if you had to summarize the changes we did to our deployment script, for example, what changed?
Well, basically, we have replaced the cache flushing command from the TYPO3 console with the one delivered by the core. I don't remember if we had a cache warm-up at all previously, and the extension setup command was replaced.
I love the extension setup, by the way, because now I don't need to do the database compare or install extensions or activate extensions, by the way.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because that's great. We are basing our setup on Composer. And with the recent changes that were introduced, all packages required via Composer are automatically active and considered active and are not meant to be deactivated anymore, which makes the package states PHP file obsolete.
Yes.
Yay!
Yeah.
One file less in our version control.
And you know what's great, too?
What?
How many files do you need to create a TYPO3 extension in TYPO3 version 11?
To create?
It's another quiz.
It's a quiz, yeah. If I remember correctly right now, it's just one file, basically. It's a composer JSON, because we don't need the emconf file anymore.
Yes.
Because the composer JSON has all information we need.
Yes, and that's what I really loved about it. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but if you're working on TYPO3 extensions on a daily basis, it's just so great to just go folder, composer JSON, extension setup command, and you're done.
Yeah.
So that's really, really amazing.
I like it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you? You won't listen.
I just I counted the numbers, and I think Andy is leading in the quiz right now. So what is the question again?
Who invited you anyway? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know either. The question was whether you also like it, but
Yeah, sure.
let's just skip that part.
I totally like it. I was now preparing for another question, like from the TYPO3 quiz. Yeah.
So should I ask?
No.
Another question.
You can ask me a question, but probably I don't want to participate in the quiz right now because I don't feel prepared for the quiz. Yeah.
Maybe you are. I could ask you about what fancy security stuff do I know. So I'm using Sentry, and Sentry sent me a newsletter recently that I can now log my CSP errors on Sentry. What is CSP?
CSP is that's a perfect question. It's a content security policy. So that is an HTTP header. It also can be sent using a metadata header inside the markup, the HTML. And CSP is a standard, so that's a web standard. And you can define which resources are allowed to be loaded on your web page. So a resource could be an image, a resource could be a movie file from YouTube, for instance. So you're able to define, okay, this website is allowed to retrieve data from YouTube in order to play videos. But the interesting part is scripting. So you also have the capabilities of defining which scripts are allowed on a website, and basically that Google can introduce. I don't want to blame Google here, but Google can load like tracking mechanisms in order to give you more insights into what's happening on a website, because that is also a JavaScript file that is loaded from a remote server. And basically by using CSP, you define I'm trusting that server because it's Google and Google is okay, because yeah, check that and it's fine. And the reason for that is that basically we can, coming back to the security topic or the security part of CSP, a well-known vulnerability is cross-site scripting. So this is when you have, I don't know, like a comment form or guest book. So these are really like the classic things. So like form where you can enter something. And basically also the TYPO3 backend uses forms in order to read data from a user. And then the question is, can I trust that user, or is basically that account hacked, and therefore we have already multi-factor authorization. You see that it all belongs together. So that is a bigger story. Basically, if somebody manages to inject JavaScript code into a website that gets executed and you don't realize that and don't know about that, then in the background, basically every keystroke, every action that you take on a website can be monitored. And using CSP is a very effective mechanism to actually reduce the risk here.
Can we get back to
TYPO3?
TYPO3 maybe?
Yeah, sure. There's an initiative. There's an aim to basically have the backend secure and secured by the CSP headers. However, we are not done yet, so that is an ongoing effort. But I'm pretty happy that we managed to at least deprecate the APIs that we had in place. So short story on that as well. So we were using TCA, the table configuration array, which is used to configure tables that are editable in the TYPO3 backend. And the TCA also provided a possibility to define actions in JavaScript, like when you click on that button or do that action, then execute a JavaScript snippet, which is totally fine. However, it also can be misused. And we don't know who wrote that script or wrote that on-click line in there, and therefore we deprecated it and tried to come up with solutions. Like, we have alternatives for that. We provided examples how to overcome that situation in order to reduce that arbitrary script. So we want to remove arbitrary script and want to be more declarative, like what is allowed and what actually shall be executed. It's all documented, so that's a documentation team. I think you know how that works there. So it's perfectly documented, and we are not done yet. So that is basically the question, and I hope we still can continue on that, or at least I'm confident we are going to continue on that. And maybe it works. No promises. Maybe we still are able to have that in version 11. So because we have the deprecations done, we don't need to do any breaking changes here. It's more like we're going to streamline the missing pieces, yeah, in order to enable CSP per default.
So what kind of skills would I need if I wanted to help with that?
The question is about basically joining the security team, and the security team, of course, needs support by the community. So we are currently just a bunch of 6 people. So that's not enough. We need more people, and we also see, like, basically everywhere in the world, like, vulnerabilities and those kind of things raising. And the complexity of the systems that we use is also, it's increasing. So we don't understand all the systems that we use. And that requires, we need those kind of people that don't know all these things, but that are willing to actually dig deeper into the code and find out why something could be a vulnerability or is not a vulnerability. People that are interested in doing security stuff basically should be that interested in doing security topics. So don't need to be highly professional on that. You can learn anything. So I was not born with those kind of addiction to security topics. Yeah, you can learn that. And I really love that to find reasons why are things like they are and how can we improve them. So that's like, interest. Then you need to have that kind of passion of doing things. Yeah, like finding out what's wrong, and then probably you need to be patient because when you have found a security vulnerability, of course, there's the next step, and that is basically the difference. We receive a lot of mails from security reporters, so a lot of them are false positives, yeah, but there are also some vulnerabilities that are valid. So for instance, today we released with the new version 2 vulnerabilities, so they are fixed in version 11 right now.
So we released fixes for vulnerabilities, I hope.
Yeah, we fixed the vulnerabilities, exactly. So TYPO3 version 11 LTS is more secure, and we just released those fixes for version 11 because they were introduced in version 11 only. So that is the important part. And the thing is that when we fix those kind of vulnerabilities, we need to take care or keep in mind that we don't want to have breaking changes. We want to be as compatible as we were before, and that is unfortunately not possible in all situations, where we really need to make the decision whether we focus on security or whether we focus on the compatibility. So basically, just if you're interested in security topics, write a mail to security@typo3.org, and then we pick that up and can talk about the details.
And you can work with Ollie, who's a lot of fun to work with most of the time.
Thank you.
I can approve.
I think that was positive. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was positive. So let's talk a bit about non-security topics, because I think Andy feels left out of our conversation. I heard that typo3.com is already running on 11.
That's true.
Was it hard?
Actually, not that much. It was we're upgrading the composer packages to version 11 Dev Master, I guess it's still called. But there were no major issues, and we made use of Rector doing that.
What's Rector?
Rector is some nice tool to migrate your code based on rules. So it knows, okay, there is some code that doesn't work anymore, and I'm going to migrate it in a predefined schema. And then, in most cases, it works out of the box. Yeah, but sometimes there are some minor changes you have to do by yourself, because the code is either too complex or the rule is not perfect enough. But that's okay, because it takes most of the pain you have to do manually by yourself. It eases the migration very much, and I can only recommend it.
Do we need to change anything much on our setup, our basic setup, or did we just upgrade that? You don't remember because you don't remember yesterday.
Well, yeah, the only major thing I can remember right now we had to change was in the deployment because of the composer change, since we don't need package states PHP anymore, was that we build a package artifacts PHP file now, which needs to be built in the deployment process and needs to be rolled out. So it's might necessary to adjust your deployment process to have this file on the server, but that's rather easy task, and I don't think there were that major issues. I can't remember of any major issue we had.
That sounds pretty good. I'm wondering if there's anything else we want to tell developers of TYPO3 about version 11. Anything?
Developers.
Yeah, those are guys like
Yeah.
Andy, like white, looking like they haven't left. No, that's... And
I would have another
like me.
topic, but it's like kind of different here. So it's about lit HTML that we...
That's something that a developer should probably know
Yeah.
too, isn't
Yeah.
it? So I mean, Benny talked about web components, and I think lit elements is probably some kind of implementation we have for that
Yeah.
that we can use.
Mhm. So basically, we web components is a standard. We have like tags and behaving like regular tags, but we are able to define the behavior of those like web components, and we're using lit elements for that. So that is a framework. It was previously known as Polymer, and the cool thing is that it is really close to that web stack, to the web component specification. So basically, we're writing HTML in JavaScript, and yeah, just check it out and try out how lit element is used.
So let's do that. So I have lit elements, and I need new CLI commands. I need to change my deployment a little bit, but then it's much better and smoother in the process. I can warm up caches, flush caches, and I don't need a package states anymore. So happy about that. I would say thank you and join the security team if you're interested in security. That's your guy. Back to the station. Goodbye, Olli. Goodbye, Andy.
Thank you, Susie, Ollie, and Andy, for the interesting topics you discussed so far. And what would a show be without a commercial break, right? So I would like to take this moment to present to you some items out of our merch store on the official online shop website, shop.typo3.com. And for this, I brought my colleague Silke with me. So we spared no expenses to get two people onto the ISS tonight. And yeah, welcome Silke to the show, presenting the new TYPO3 drinking bottle. So what we have here basically is a 500 milliliter sports bottle. And of course it looks very nice, it looks very sleek. And it is printed with a large TYPO3 logo. It has a sealable cap on the top, and it's spring ejecting. And yeah, you can take a sip during sports or during watching our show, for example, or whenever you feel thirsty, basically. So these are available currently for only $24.95 in our online shop. So, Silke, if you would go ahead and present the next item. So what we have here, for all the people who either are not too much into sports or don't like sporty drinking bottles per se, we have a beer mug, which is an amazing little piece of stoneware made in Bavaria. And it is not just a printed TYPO3 logo, it is what is it called, emboldened or something like that? I'm sorry, I'm not prepared for the technical question of that. It's also half a liter or 500 milliliters, and it's currently available for only $14.95. So for our next item, we have a nice wireless headphone for you. And this one is very special indeed, because not only is it light and foldable. Can you fold it real quick a little bit?
Yes.
So you can fit it in any side pocket or in your backpack or anything, but it also lights up, and it doesn't just light up with anything. I mean, we went ahead and put a TYPO3 logo on it.
On this side, yes.
Exactly, on this side, and we can, hang on, turn it on and it lights up. Is that amazing? It is so amazing I don't even know how to turn it off. I don't want to turn it off anymore. I just want to go ahead and enjoy music. So this little neat piece of technology is available in the online shop currently for only $39.95. So yeah. The next item is a very much requested item. So many people have been asking me about something along the lines of a large mouse pad during TYPO3 cams and during developer days, and you all remember that we had events at some point. And we finally got around to get a nice design onto a large desk mat, which comfortably holds or makes a comfortable armrest for both your keyboard and your mouse.
So soft.
It is soft indeed. It is very, very soft. And as far as I've been informed so far, you can hand wash it with just lukewarm water if you get a stain on it. And yeah, This beauty is currently available in the online shop for $29.95. So next item on the ISS tonight is a smaller item, but like a very handy thing to have, which is a keychain. It is embroidered with a TYPO3 logo on the front, and please turn it around, and a marquee line, the key to success, on the back. This is currently available for $6.95 in our online shop, and it is actually so nice. I brought my key up to the space station. I've had this in my pocket for like 3.5 months now, and it's not stained too much. So even though it's got a lot of light colors, it doesn't stain too bad, and it's keeping clean quite awesomely. So yeah, again, $6.95 in the online shop. And now we have a double as the final item/items for tonight, because so many people asked us, could we please bring back the famous TYPO3 pins? And we did. We got some very nice pins, and I'm also wearing one tonight. And so many people said that the old pins they used to twist because they only had one needle. These have double needles, so they don't twist up anymore. So, and the other thing we have is we also made some matching cufflinks. We don't have ties and bow ties yet, but if you're more the business type, or if you're liking to wear a dinner jacket or just, you know, a nice jacket with some cufflinks, we got you covered with TYPO3 logos. So yeah, that was a little commercial interaction right now. Thank you, Silke, for the very beautiful and nice support.
Thank you.
And yeah, basically, we can get back. We can get back to planet Earth, to the third panel, where Susie is currently waiting to interview Tom Warwick, a technical writer. And the interview is going to be about technical changes to the technical documentation, and Luisa Faßbender, which is the marketing team lead of the TYPO3 Association. And her topic, as far as I'm aware, is going to be TYPO3 11 LTS from a marketing kind of perspective. So really looking forward to that. Let's watch, shall we?
Welcome back to my living room. For some reason I can't explain, people keep beaming on these chairs. This time it's Luisa, the leader of the TYPO3 marketing team, and Tom from the documentation team. Welcome.
Hello.
It's nice to see you. So basically, I'm pretty happy that those two are here, because for a version like TYPO3 version 11, for a release like that, there is more to it than just the code. You know, we heard a lot about code and developers and how to use the backend, but there's actually a whole universe involved to release a new version. So for example, we have a lot of marketing done for a new version, and I can show some of the stuff, and I hope Luisa will tell us about it, because I have no idea what I'm talking about here. That's why we have you.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you a little bit about the marketing stuff. So first of all, thanks for letting me be here. I'm really excited to be here today and share a little bit about the marketing stuff as well. So for the release of version 11, we created an entire page. I'm not sure if you're able to see it right now.
We need to ask our technicians, where's the engineering room?
Are we able to switch to the site?
Engineering, thank you.
Perfect. So as you can see on the TYPO3.org, we created the page TYPO3 version 11 LTS release material, and basically we just did a conglomerate of anything that could help you sell TYPO3 better. So if you would scroll down a little bit, we have a nice entry point, obviously, and then the first and most important thing we did in cooperation with Susie, who did the release presentation, and also Benny, who provided all of the input, obviously. We did the release presentation, which is available for download there. Then we did some additional release materials, so we have the entire social media banners in all shapes and sizes for any kind of wherever you want to use it for. It's for LinkedIn, for Twitter, for Instagram, whatever you want to have. We probably have it there, both with and without text. Then we have a couple of backend screenshots if you want to take a look at the version 11 backend without actually downloading TYPO3, or if you didn't upgrade to TYPO3 11 yet, you're able to just take a look at what's new. And then something that's new that we didn't have last year is we have a short slide deck prepared, which just highlights all of the version 11 highlights. So this can be used for lightning talks. For example, if you want to tell someone what's new in TYPO3 11 without going through the entire release presentation, this is just a short summary about anything that was introduced through all of the minor versions. So we start with welcome to the biggest TYPO3 fleet yet, because we have a lot of LTS and ELTS versions right now, and then it just goes through all of the minor releases, and it just emphasizes the biggest changes that have happened there.
Cool.
If you go back a page, we have a little bit more. And as you can see, on the bottom of the page, we have a slight statement going not convinced yet, why you should upgrade to version 11 LTS. And we prepared 2 different documents which could help you persuade your decision makers, your editors, or your developers why it makes sense for them to upgrade. It's just a 1-page PDF, nothing special, but it highlights the most important changes for the different user groups.
Don't say nothing special. We had something like that before, and if I remember correctly, one of the difficulties people have with a new upgrade is that you have to sell it somehow.
We tried our best.
Yeah,
I hope it
think
helps,
it's
and
great.
I'd love to get some statistics on whether it actually helped people sell TYPO3 better.
Yeah, so everybody out there, if you're using these, please give feedback and let us know if that helps, if we should continue doing that.
There's also going to come another PDF. It isn't completely done yet, which is just going to highlight the key features of version 11, and that's going to be uploaded there as well, probably tomorrow.
Okay, so we have something to look forward to for after the party.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on how long the party goes, let's see when we'll release that tomorrow. So basically, this is the marketing side of things. The other thing that I'm pretty happy about, because I'm also part of that team, is that we also have documentation for version 11 already done and linked and released. And maybe Tom wants to talk about the latest changes in the documentation and what we did for version 11. And I can show that on the screen.
Well, thank you, Captain. Yeah, it's been a busy year for docs, but equally a really good year as well. And it kind of falls into 2 areas, really, in terms of docs.typo3.org as a platform, and also the content on docs.typo3.org as well. So this year we've seen the launch of the new search tool for docs, which was developed by Timic, and we're now at a point where users can search for information. Can you take over? This mic doesn't work right now.
We need to swap mics because Tom has technical difficulties,
Do you want
but
to
I
use
think
mine?
the engineering room is informed, and our helpful engineers will now switch mics or turn the mic on. Or have you tried turning it off and on again? Yep, they are working on it. So basically, what Tom was trying to say, which I will now probably do, We had a lot of work done on the documentation in the last year during the version 11 phase. So, for example, we have a new search which can be used, which is live for a while now, and you can finally search through all of the documentation, which is not directly related to version 11, but of course you can find version 11 documentation already because that is already there. And if I got that correctly, engineering fixed it.
Hello, Will.
Hello.
Hello, Mum. Yeah, so just to carry on with that a little bit, yeah, we've got the search functionality which is there now, thanks to Timic's work, and we now have, or thanks to Lena and Alexander, we now have the ability to capture screenshots automatically for all of our documentation. And this kind of ties into 11 because it means from our perspective we are now able to capture screenshots automatically or systematically using scripts. So in terms of generating new screenshots for version 11 and version 12 as well, things are just a little bit quicker now. So thank you to Lena and Alexander for that. But getting back to version 11, as part of the wider restructuring project, we've kind of worked on 3 areas to get ready for 11. The first part was to completely restructure the main navigation for docs.typo3.org. And we're at the point now where our main navigation mimics or kind of is the same as what you'd expect from any other CMS. So things are in a more logical order now. We start with installation, we then look at adding content and managing pages, and then configuring the installation and so on. And as part of that work, we completely rewrote and rebuilt the Getting Started guide. Prior to this release, we had 2 separate installation guides that both contain relevant content, but they were in 2 separate places. So as part of this project, we kind of merged both sets of documentation together, and there we go. And yeah, we've changed the top level structure as well, which have these really cool little cards to kind of give an overview of the chapter's content as well, which I think works really well for us. And one thing you might notice in a new guide as well is that we no longer, by default, we only talk about Composer or installing TYPO3 using Composer. And the same also applies to extensions. Now we no longer talk about the legacy methods. The documentation still remains for that, but we don't talk about it anywhere near as much as we used to, which is really good. And obviously with the changes to extension management in 11.5, the documentation also accounts for that as well in terms of activating extensions, or the fact that we don't need to activate extensions anymore, which is really good as well. As well, we've also changed the homepage for the docs. That's given that a little bit of love as well. And we've kind of structured it in the same way, with the introduction content at the very beginning, and then we kind of break down into other areas also. Yeah, so longer term, with the release of version 11, one of the things we're looking at doing next is producing tutorials aimed specifically at new users, with the end goal being that these are detailed, fine-grained pieces of documentation or tutorials that will take a new user from the point where they install TYPO3 for the first time, configure it, and then start adding content and building templates as well. But that's a little bit further down the line for now.
That all sounds very good. And for me, what's important with version 11, we have, at least as far as I can remember, which is longer than the last party actually, we have the first release where I have the feeling that both the documentation and the marketing are working closely together with the development team, so that we don't just have a development release and then the marketing kind of does its thing after that. But right from the start, we all work together to get a more consistent release this time. And I hope we can keep that up in the future. And maybe you want to talk a bit about how the marketing team works together with the other teams and how we could get involved if we wanted to.
Yeah, sure. I hope the sound is doing fine, because I got a new mic. Okay, nice. Yeah, this time I was actually really happy about how things went, because we worked together with you, with the core team, and also with the design team, and a couple of other people, and Michael Charms, who does all of the What's New slides. We had a separate Slack channel, actually, where we just talked through the different releases, we defined the slogans together, and we also discussed different things. I would love for us to keep in touch in that way and actually start working on the version 12 release, at least the starting point. I would love to get a better story next time, a more inclusive story, and get more people involved in it. I think it would be great if we just had a meeting or just got together before we actually kick things off for the next cycle. That would be great. And I would also love to have Tom there, or the documentation team there as well, because I think the whole thing you're doing with the tutorials would be also something we could market really well, because that's a goal of us, to get more people into TYPO3, and we can do that via documentation and tutorials, so maybe we can just chat about it afterwards.
Maybe we should, but on the other hand, we have some time left, so we need to find topics to talk about. So see what else we have for version 11,
Okay.
which is relevant. So what are you excited about? What are you personally, Tom, excited about?
Well, I'm always done for security, and I think Ollie touched on it earlier. The changes to multi-factor authentication are really important, and I was surprised just how easy it is to set up as well. So I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I think we should be excited about security more than we are. So yeah, I think multi-factor is a big deal for us. And I think I touched on it last week in the online days. The changes that have been made to developing custom content elements in version 11, and how we load site packages and extensions as well, I think is a subtle change, but it certainly makes the developer's life a lot easier as well. So for me at least, I think in version 11 there's lots of small changes, I think, that add up to, which will make things easier for everyone, be it an editor or a developer as well. So yeah, there's lots of little changes I'm really into at the minute.
Have you used version 11 already?
I use it every day, and yeah, I'm really impressed with it. And the back end and the page tree in particular, the page tree is a lot quicker, even quicker, and yeah, that's really cool as well. So yeah, and we also have really, really good documentation for the import-export tool that somebody I know wrote, and that's really good as well. So check that out.
Yeah, good point actually, because import-export has been there forever, but it finally got documentation. I think it was merged yesterday.
Yep.
So something we did.
And that's something I didn't know about, that since in the example in the documentation, we talk about how you can migrate an instance of TYPO3 that's running version 3.8 and take it all the way up to 11. I didn't know about that before, and that's really cool. So I know about it now, and I think the docs are really good for it. When we wrote the docs, we were kind of talking to existing developers, and equally we're trying to talk to new users as well, or people who've just picked up the system for the first time. So we made a point of explaining things as much as we could, both in layman's terms and for more advanced users as well. And yeah, it's a really cool function I didn't know we could use before. So yeah, that's something I've learned this week as well. So yeah, import-export tool is really cool.
How about you?
I'm actually really excited about all of the back-end changes for the editors, because most of the time when you're trying to market a tool or a software such as TYPO3, it's really hard to get people, in terms of like decision makers, excited about a system when talking about like PSR standards and PHP support. I mean, that's great, but that's hard to market and to get people to buy it because of that, or to not buy it but choose it. I'm just really excited about all of the small features that got into the backend, so like the collapsible tree, and you can like customize a lot of stuff. You have the improved upload functionality, which I've seen in a demo before. I think that also got merged, I think Ollie told me. It just makes TYPO3 as a product a lot better, in my opinion, and easier, and it lowers the entry boundary of, or the superstition about TYPO3 is really hard and really complicated, because it gets more towards industry standards, and that's something I'm really happy about. And another thing is the multi-factor authentication, because we actually integrated that for a customer a couple of months ago, and now it's in the core, so that's really exciting.
Yes, that's good. And also sounds like if I take both of these together, as if all the smaller changes, so it's not one big thing about version 11 which will make it the version to use, but it will be lots of small things that simply make it nicer and more comfortable, or make me more comfortable when using that, because I don't stumble upon the page tree all the time or have to reload my backend, and I can just send you a link and you can look at my page. Yeah. So and this is something I think is really good. Also that we are reducing the necessity of specific training for the basic features at least. So basically I'd expect if I install a system like TYPO3 that I can log in into the backend and at least grasp the default functionality, like how do I add a content element or how do I change a headline somewhere without needing 2-day training for that. And I think version 11 is a big step in that direction, both with the documentation but also with all the smaller changes like what Benny mentioned earlier, that we now have something as trivial as a label for a button, which just tells you what that little symbol is supposed to mean. So I used to tell the story about the customer I had who asked if he should press the little TV to save because he didn't know what the symbol was supposed to mean. So yeah, just writing save can make life of people easier.
I also really like the sharing backend links functionality, because that makes my life as a project manager a lot easier, because I can just tell my customer, please use this link and edit this and that, and I don't have to send around like PIDs or whatever. That's a really good improvement.
Edit the content page. No, not that content
Yeah,
page.
and it's not like you don't need to search for the page, you just click on the link and you're directly where you need to be. That's something that was missing.
I'm wondering if we will see in version 11 at some point in the next releases the possibility to directly open a page from the admin tool, because that would be cool. If I could just in the admin panel go like open this and edit this, so I can use front and back and just jump around.
Or something like an admin panel for editors. I think we talked about that a couple of days ago as well.
Yeah, maybe we can just rename the admin. There were some turbulences, sorry about that, but I think the gamma rays just broke through our shielding or something like that.
I think
We're
it's a
flying at
Romulan.
warp speed, so
We're flying at warp speed, so
acceptable.
It's
there's
always the Romulans. Always a Romulans.
bound to be some problems. So where were we? We were at...
We were at the error pages, but I
Error
don't know
pages.
when I got cut off, so...
Maybe just say the sentence again.
Okay, so we have nice looking error pages right now, which don't look like they're 200 years old in terms of like website lifetime. I don't think that's the one we're looking for, but
Hi, I'm Mathis from engineering, and as you could tell, stuff breaks. But this wouldn't be a spaceflight if we couldn't like improvise stuff. So everybody just get in here while I get out here, and then you guys continue the freaking talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Now I'm kind of confused by being in a space station.
Well, at least we're fitting the theme right now, so that's nice.
I'm a bit afraid that I'm going to fall onto the Earth. Okay. So we're not talking about the error handlers because error handlers are there for when things break. But as you can see, that never happens, so we don't need an error handler. Let's just switch to another topic.
Well,
So-
maybe tell me what you're excited about in version 11. Let's switch it up a little bit and I interview you for a second.
What am I excited about in version 11? I actually am most excited about the extension setup command, to be honest. It sounds totally boring, but I like just how I don't need to know the exact extension key to set up an extension, but can just go like extension setup and everything is going to be set up and ready to be used. And I also don't need to activate composer packages anymore, so what Andy talked about earlier, because, you know, I'm like old and I used to forget that I need to activate an extension, so I go like composer require my extension, and well, then I was wondering for the next half hour why nothing worked, and basically nothing worked because I forgot to activate it, so I don't have to do that anymore. That's quite good for old people like me. You probably can't know that. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about. Also, I was doing a lot of content work for TYPO3.com in the last few weeks, and that actually feels so much better since version 11. This is really amazing. I think engineering just broke the ship, but we are going to just continue talking here. Yeah, I don't know. What else is there?
We've got, well, just to peek off the evening really, we've got a new upgrade guide on docs.typo3.org now as well, to coincide with the launch of 11. So if you're looking to install to or upgrade to version 11.5, we have a new upgrading section which talks you through the upgrade process for version 11.5 and pre-11.5 using Composer. And we also have the legacy upgrade information is still there as well. So if you're still running on a legacy or a classic installation of Typo, we've got you covered as well. We've also got some really cool information on how you can migrate a classic installation of Typo 3 over to Composer as well, which is really useful because, as we know, going forward, Composer is the way. So that's really cool, so check that out. The other thing we've spent a bit of time on for this release is reworking the deployment guide as well. So we've got plenty of information on how you can deploy Typo 3 and the different tools available to do that. And that's received quite a bit of attention as well, so check that out. And this is all in the new Getting Started guide as well on docs.typo3.org. I've really got to plug the docs tonight, so that's my job. So
Yeah,
I'm just going to keep
you're
talking
doing a
about
great
docs.
job. Okay, maybe I would have another question. As a marketing team lead, I would be excited to hear about what you guys think that we're still lacking in terms of marketing stuff. What do you think could make Typo 3 better, which we could provide?
The most important features of Typo 3 in 3 minutes, and yet no, don't say that you have that already, because then it's just obvious that I didn't read all the marketing
No,
material.
we don't have that already, but that's a good point. Okay.
So
are you talking about like a video or a slide? Because videos are actually coming.
this is something like, I don't like videos much because videos take much more time to grasp the information. I'm saying that while we are doing a video, I know. But I like bullet lists of just bam, 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 give me features. because then I can quickly scan that and then promote it and use it. And I don't have time to read sentences, so nothing against the documentation, nothing against your perfect sentences.
Please do
there.
the documentation bullet points as well.
but I really prefer for getting an overview, for getting an intro, kind of bullet list, so I can just quickly scan it and go, yeah, no,
That's good.
like that.
Thanks. And how about you? Anything we could do for the documentation team?
I think we need, and we're getting there to start off with, but I think we need to spend or really think about new users more. I think we have two very distinct user groups, new users and existing users. And I think they're very two different groups of people, but I think we need to think a little bit more about our new users or potential users who haven't started using the system yet. And I think we're kind of getting there, but for me it's all about new users and kind of when they hit the docs or when they come to us for the first time, what kind of experience are they having with TYPO3 for the first time, and how can we kind of improve that? So yeah, the tutorials we hope will kind of address that issue. So when they want to play around with it for the first time, we've got everything they need there to get started. So yeah, it's all about the docs.
One topic guy.
Just like ask him anything and he will turn it into document.
What do you say to the t-shirt Jörg was wearing earlier?
It's a lovely t-shirt, and the model it's on is even better. So yeah, I love his t-shirt. We love you, Jörg, as well. So
I was just waiting if you could turn that t-shirt around to the docs, actually.
like a docs t-shirt for next year.
Like this, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, we
seeing
will
how
come up with
you
something,
can
yeah.
drop the documentation into a conversation about t-shirts.
Well, to make any good t-shirt, you know, you could set a docs working machine in the first place. So. But yeah.
That's right.
Ta-da! It's fixed. We're gonna go to a quick break and then, continue as usual. So, thanks for bearing with us.
And shoes off in my ISS, please. Fascinating stuff. I'm very, very sorry for the technical issues we had, so I had to make some room in my very crowded space over here, because there's astronauts on here, there's me on here, we had to get these guys up here as well. But yeah, thank you, Susie, thank you, Tom, thank you, Luisa, and this is basically my final transition into the last panel for tonight, where we have Benji Kott, the developer advocate of TYPO3, talking about maintaining extensions, I think, with the example of his Bootstrap package. And we also have Volker Graubaum, who's the Chief Product Officer for TYPO3, and he will talk about TYPO3 from an ecosystem point of view, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah, this is going to be a very, very interesting topic and a very interesting panel, and we'll see each other soon again. Thank you.
I'm feeling a bit nauseated now by jumping from the space station back to the living room and back to the space station, but here we are again.
I've just been to the engine room. It's really hot in there, I can tell you.
Yeah, you look like it.
Yeah.
So I've got new people in my living room again, and really need to talk to the landlord about that. There's weird guys showing up all the time. So this is Volker. He's the chief product officer, and this is Benji, who's Benji.
I'm
Maybe
Benji.
he's Benji.
I'm Benji.
I love Benji. I really
Don't
do.
tell my wife.
She knows.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, Benji is here because he's the maintainer of one of the most used packages in TYPO3, the Bootstrap package, which is also the base for the introduction package, which you probably know. So I'm happy to have both of them here, and I'd like to talk, surprisingly, about version 11 a bit. But I know that Volker will probably give us a glimpse at more out in the universe of TYPO3. So let's maybe start with Benji, because he's actually talking about version 11.
What?
A bit more. Here we go. Could the engine room please switch to my computer? Benji, what's that?
I guess a browser and a website. And it's probably running the introduction package with the newest release of Bootstrap package. And it looks quite good. So, I'm not sure what I should tell you now.
Well, this is obviously version 11. Let me check. It's actually 11.5.1.
Yeah, sure.
Dev, so the introduction package and therefore the Bootstrap package are already compatible with TYPO3 version 11. So when did you do that?
Well, we introduced, well, it was supported a while on the development branch of the Bootstrap package, but we released official support with version 11.3, since we were not expecting any breaking changes or anything that would stop us from running on there. So the support from the core is really good. And we would have released earlier, but we had this big Bootstrap 5 migration ongoing that just took a lot of time. Otherwise, we could have just jumped into version 11 when it was first released. So no big problems.
So would you recommend doing that as to an extension maintainer?
Well, it makes it really easy. So my upgrade policy is that I always want to have a version that supports the two latest LTS versions to keep this running. And it's good to figure out, okay, what can you improve on the development side, what can be enhanced, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and the earlier I go into this process, back when I was mainly doing client work, we used to start development on dev branches of TYPO3 because our project was just really long, and we just needed to, because as soon as we were going live with the project, all our extensions, all our code needs to be compatible. So the sooner you can do it, the better it is.
Okay, so have you any idea how many extensions there are already compatible with version 11 now?
Yes, the support is growing version by version. I can remember we started at version 9.5. What's the first time we were looking into these numbers? So we're around 70 on release. And we are now at 170 compatible extensions with the latest release. So that's a great achievement by the development community, to be honest. Yeah, and people are starting adapting more easy. The core gets more reliable, more stable. The interfaces just getting better and better. We're moving away from just array key manipulation and have really interfaces we can implement against. And that makes it really easy for extension developers to keep up with the latest development.
That sounds actually pretty great. So probably if I started my version 11 project now, then I could actually start with all the available extensions already.
Yeah.
And for a smaller project of mine, I already tried it, for example, and had like 2 extensions that weren't compatible with version 11 yet, and I did pull requests, and both were merged within the week. So in general, I have the feeling that the community is willing to accept pull requests quite easily. So if you started now with version 11 and you have 1 or 2 extensions that aren't compatible yet, consider just contributing to those, because in my experience you can make the whole ecosystem better that way, and also provide your clients with the latest version directly. So if I look at Volker, hello.
Hi, Susie.
What were your highlights in version 11? So what was your greatest achievement from the product point of view?
From the product point of view, I would say the editor experience, because it's so smooth and it's everything looks the same, where it should look the same, and it's as we know in TYPO3, a lot of people are working on that and people are contributing on a voluntary base, but that fits in the past to the situation that we have different trees in different places and all of that. And with the version 11, it's a great experience just to do it everywhere in the same way as you expect it to do it. And from me as a user, but also as from the product side, it's really great that the editor experience improved a lot.
I mean, you're Chief Product Officer, I think it's called. Is it?
It is.
As you may notice when I'm asking that, I'm not quite sure what's that supposed to mean. So what is your job?
So actually I'm, let's say, responsible for the product TYPO3. And when I'm talking about the product TYPO3, I'm not talking about the core itself. It's there we have Benni and his team, and Benni is core team lead and is also taking responsibility not only from the technical point of view but also from a more visionary point of view. So it was great to work with him together and develop new ideas also for the core, but for the whole ecosystem. So when we are talking about having extensions ready in time, it's very important that the core has to be stable very early. So that was already on the agenda from Benni, and we achieved that with version 11 very well. But it's also so that I'm in contact with partners and extension integration authors who are developing new features and say, oh, I would really love to have that possibility in the core to improve my functionality with the extension. And I'm trying to bring all the things together. And to do that, I'm not so much talking about features and about technique, but I'm talking about the why. Why should we do things? And I'm not looking, are we solving problems in the core, but are we solving problems for the world? And it's so not in the total for the TYPO3 world. And I'm trying to have a wider view and in terms of what is the market, what is needed in the market, and what should the product provide to the end user.
So, but basically you have a more holistic view on the product, like if I want to solve my problem, I can use TYPO3 and the core product, like the CMS, and 2 extensions from third parties then to solve my problem. And you basically take care of streamlining all that and making people aware of that, of the solutions that exist there. From your perspective, what would you tell Benji? Why should he? Benji's really interested. Why should he start as early as possible to make his extension compatible with a new version? I mean, he did that already, but in case he just got lazy, which could happen.
Yeah, actually, it's do it for the user. And your extension is really loved by people, by all the people out there. And if they see that you are taking care about your extension, they know you are taking care about the people. And additionally, you are helping to grow the TYPO3 product at all. So we know that a lot of pages are using the Bootstrap package out there, and even more people are using it. I just found a page from, I think it was somewhere in South America, some educational site which they are building internally, and they are using the Bootstrap package. So it's a very important part for the product TYPO3. And you are interested in TYPO3. We are all interested in, and so yeah, take the chance and help making TYPO3 better. And for that, I started a program which is called Verified Extension. Because, of course, I know that it sometimes needs some additional motivation, and with the program I want to show more visibility of the extensions, and for the extension authors to say these authors are promising that they are bringing updates early, that they are taking care of the extension for the current LTS releases. So actually it's a little bit, I'm describing what Benni has described, what he wants to do and how he's handling his extension, and make that more official.
Okay, but you had a really interesting point in there. You lost me completely by doing it for the good and the other stuff. You know, I'm not a happy guy. I'm mostly looking really, really sad. But you mentioned you want to provide more exposure to the authors, so that could really help me to grow my business if I were a business owner, or to grow my revenue, and basically to achieve both. Because I really love both things. I love to do something for my living, because
you like living?
I like living. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that sounds really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think that's important. We need a balance, and we need a balance between, let's say, giving, taking, and I know that giving is sometimes hard. We are a grown-up community. We are not a totally new CMS on the market, so a lot of people are for a long time in the community. They now have family and a house or whatever where they have to take care, which also takes some time. The spare time is getting rare in the time, and so I'm trying to bring together the different aspects of that. Of course, showing that it's helping and that it's valuable. And I had a really interesting talk with one extension author who says, I wasn't sure if our extension is the right, but now that you are asking me, I'm feeling very happy. So hopefully I can motivate all the people out there who has an extension to join the program, because it's open for everyone at least. It's very clear rules, and so everyone can join. But on the other side, I want to give something back. So as mentioned, I'm working as an editor with TYPO3 version 11 for relaunch of the web page. So I know how to do that, and with the new web page we want to bring the verified extension even on the typo3.com page, and are showing them very prominent, and showing who is the author, and provide a direct contact to the authors. For free extension, we will have a prominent sponsoring button, so people should think about sponsoring extensions for maintenance, because a lot of people are doing that in spare times, actually. Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is that you will provide a possibility for me to do what I love, with the benefit that allows me to make a living from it at the same time. So it's not one versus the other. I can still love what I'm doing, even if it has a benefit that allows me to make a living out of it. And I really like the idea of verified extensions, because one complaint everybody always has about using third-party extensions is that you can't be sure whether that extension is supported for the next few years, whether there is someone at all available to help with bug fixes or merge pull requests. I mean, sometimes you have pull requests open for a long time, even though my personal experience in the last few months was a lot better than I remember from years back. That is still something that, especially in a professional project, you have to consider when using a TYPO3 extension. And I think what you want to achieve there is to provide us as a community with a way to say that these kind of extensions are safe to be used in a professional context. So this is really amazing. I like it a lot. And I hope lots of people are willing to be verified extension authors, even though there are some requirements there. I think version 11 compatibility is one of those requirements, if I remember correctly.
And another requirement is also promising that you are provide your version 12 solution of your extension, and that early. So
wait, version 12.
Yeah.
While I have you here, you said you are responsible for all the product stuff, didn't you?
Yeah.
And this is basically the last part of our release stream.
Yeah.
So maybe we are now flying at warp speed.
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Oh, yeah, it's a wide way to go, and actually there are a lot of universe we have to discover, and yeah, we have a few points. So one point is that I really want to go the next step in making TYPO3 easier to get started with and use, especially for new users. So that we are reducing the entry level for TYPO3 at all. Another point where I wanted to go is making even a stronger ecosystem. What we have started, the verified extension, is just one step. I think it's very important that we create industry packages.
What's an industry package?
Industry package, we have already one, the higher education package, which means there is a package which you can just install and directly start with and creating content. You have a ready-to-use theme, a template for that. You have ready-to-use extension installed, and so you get some guarantee about that the whole package is maintained. And
so an industry in this case is something like higher education is the one we have, but also it could be, I don't
healthcare,
know,
government,
healthcare, yeah.
And some use cases. We have a lot of activity in the term of the headless topic, and the, so providing better APIs to deliver content and use it in different contexts would be helpful, because I think if we want to grow, and especially in markets we are not so active, we need to make it the agencies very easy to make projects with that. And I think this industry package can help to start in a special branch. It will help to sell it easier to customers. So because if they say, oh, you don't get only the 6 years, which is actually very impressive to have 6 years support for an open source product like we have it, 3 years the free and 3 years the ELTS, but you have it for the full package with everything which is in. And this is I think there's nobody who's offering that in the moment in the open source world. So I want to do that, and I want to have stronger partnerships with all the third-party solutions we already have integrated with. For now, I know from about 150 integrations to external software products, from a couple of dumb systems, couple of PIM systems, CRM systems, and smaller special industry solutions. We are integrated in TYPO3, but we are not talking about that. And so I want to make stronger partnerships, because we are used often in an enterprise context where we have the DXP systems, which are really big, bring all what you maybe need together, and it's a very monolith system.
What's DXP?
It's we had the word on the list before. There was digital experience platform. So that actually means everything in the whole digital experience, from not only showing the content, managing the assets, showing the right assets, going to e-commerce, going to customer engagement, bring that in one platform. And I'm very sure that it's much better to take a best of breed solution, so that you can start with the system, which brings a lot of basic functionality for everything you need to start with, and then you can grow as you want. And I'm quite sure that there are even better dumb systems as a standalone system we can integrate than just trying to bring all in one systems like others are doing it. So,
especially because then we would need to maintain everything.
yeah, that's from an open source, but I'm not only sure that it's the best way because we are open source and a community product, which is also a step more than just open source, but I think that's the better concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are also not inventing our own programming language or
Exactly.
servers or stuff like that, so why not do the same with those kind of solutions?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think belong to the product, we need to work on the communication and telling more people why TYPO3 is great. So,
Telling
yeah.
more stories about it. And so there's especially telling more users about TYPO3 and telling stories about that, and also what you said at the beginning about getting more users and new users to TYPO3. That's all obviously targeted at people new to the TYPO3 universe, and as my heart beats for TYPO3, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I know we have a lot of amazing agencies out there working with TYPO3 for a long time. How do you make their lives better with your strategy? What do they
actually,
get out of it?
we have a lot of different views on what I've started with telling. So when we are talking about make it easier to get started and use TYPO3, which is in the moment on the theme-based roadmap, the using of TYPO3 is for all, not only for the new ones, it's for all important. On the other side, making TYPO3 more open to interact with other systems, but even to develop new functionality and include more basic functionality in. So if we are creating some possibilities for having it easier to create some personalization stuff, and for example, then it would be great if we not only deliver a great API, but deliver basic functionality to show how I can use it. And then again, the agency can do have an add-on and feature add-on in the system, or maybe with an extension, and have the possibility to use their own solutions they are already using. So it's all of that. What we are, what in my mind we are doing for the future is that we are looking where do we want to get better, and what do I have to build in TYPO3 or in the core or in extension, doesn't matter at that page, and how do I get it even more better if we use a special interest solution.
Where do we get interfaces defined from our side so we can use special solutions
exactly.
to integrate better?
But even bring basic functionality out of the box.
Yeah.
So it's not that we have to invent everything, that we have to buy this tool and this tool, but if I only need some basic functionality on that point, that we can provide that already.
Yeah. So maybe I would be interested in Benji's opinion on that, actually, because Benji worked for a long time in an agency and saw a lot of projects, I think. So how does it sound?
Well, we as agency, we always discuss this a lot, building it our own. Like, so I was really happy when they started introducing these industry packages, because it would also solve our problems back then. Because we, for example, let's take municipalities. Yeah, so we had a lot of municipalities to be covered, and they are always on a really tight budget with a requirement list that goes to the moon and back. Yeah, and that's basically not possible to do. Even with the whole accessibility requirements the state laws give us, etc., etc. Yeah, that's basically the budget just would make poof, and you would not have achieved a lot.
The budget makes poof.
Yeah, the budget makes poof, yeah, and it's gone. Yeah, so if we have something that would be basically fulfilling most of the requirements, we can then really work on what we were good as an agency, or our mom agency is still good as, is making the municipality or the project or whoever we are working for really stand out from the crowd, yeah, and highlighting their specialties and whatever. Because all the standard implementations, all the APIs that are required, all the everything that's the same for each, why should we build it multiple times? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we could really use more of the budget instead of really providing value, not only to the client, but also to the users. Yeah, we could better focus on their needs, do better design work, and etc., etc. And because there's more budget available from this small size pool, we had to take care about.
You mentioned one keyword where I just need to add another sentence about version 11, because you mentioned accessibility.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention that there also have been accessibility improvements in TYPO3 version 11. So that's also an area where we have an active initiative that is continuously working on improving things. I think Benni mentioned this shortcuts for the list module already, but there have been lots more. So like area labels, it's called. I'm not quite sure about that.
There's a
but
lot.
Stuff like that. So just know that there have been improvements in those areas and in more areas than those we have mentioned. I just wanted to point out that this is not everything. There's more to learn, and Luisa showed us how you can find out more by looking at the release materials, at the what's new slides, at the presentation. You can read the new documentation, and if you are a nerd like Benni, you can also read through all the commits. And now it's basically nearly time for an end here.
But we just started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The seat is just warm.
Actually, it's
you can stay in the seat.
We should we could tell so much about why you should use TYPO3. There are so many aspects for different teams, for marketing, for agencies, for editors, developers, and decision makers. And luckily, I have to say that we have a last online day, which is coming, which is at the 28th of October. And join us there. We have a lot of interesting talks for you there.
Thank you for that. And I think we're done here. And I hope these people beam out now, while Benji may stay in his seat forever. Maybe the seat will beam out too. And yeah, I don't know. Live long and prosper. And I would do the gesture, but I can't. So can somebody of you please?
This one.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a great evening. Let's party.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Susie, Benji, and Volker. This almost concludes our program for tonight's show, but I was just informed that back down on Earth, we have fireworks going for you guys. So if we could switch to the fireworks real quick. I really hope you had some fun tonight and you found some of the topics rather interesting. Events like these, and especially putting me up in space, would not be possible without the generosity of all our sponsors. I mean, you've seen them on screen tonight and on the other days during our TYPO3 Online Days sessions. But yeah, thank you again to all of our sponsors. As I said before, events like these, and especially getting with the budget, would not be possible without them. And with this, we conclude this evening, and we wish you a very pleasant rest of the night. And yeah, this concludes tonight's live stream. So I will just try to get back home. Somebody told me that there's one more spot on the Soyuz. So yeah, we'll see each other again soon, I hope. And I've been Jörg, and I've been your host, and I'm just trying to get out of here now. So yeah. Taxi!